What if I told you that right now, while you're watching this video, someone else is living through a nightmare that started just like any other autumn day? What if I told you that the most beautiful season of the year has a dark secret that nobody talks about? Tonight, I'm going to share 5 true stories that will change how you see fall forever. These aren't made-up stories. These aren't legends from the internet. These are real experiences from real people who thought they were safe. People who thought autumn was just about pretty leaves and pumpkin spice. They were wrong. Dead wrong. Are you ready? Let's begin. Story 1. The Scarecrow That Walked. Sarah Mitchell was 23 years old. She was a college student who needed money for her classes. So when she saw a job posting for a night security guard at Harvest Moon Pumpkin Patch, she thought it was perfect. Easy money, right? Just walk around a pumpkin patch at night. Make sure teenagers don't cause trouble. Simple job, good pay. What could go wrong? Everything. Everything could go wrong. The Harvest Moon Pumpkin Patch was huge. We're talking about 40 acres of land in the middle of nowhere in Illinois. During the day, it was amazing. Families everywhere. Kids laughing and playing in the corn maze. Parents taking pictures by the pumpkins. There were hay rides that went around the whole property. There were food stands selling hot apple cider and fresh donuts. The place even had a petting zoo with goats and sheep that kids could feed. It was the perfect family place. But at night it became something else. Something wrong. Sarah's shift started at 10 at night and ended at 6 in the morning. 8 hours of walking around in the dark with just a flashlight and a walkie-talkie. The owner, Mr. Harrison, gave her a simple route to follow. Check the main entrance every hour. Walk through the corn maze twice per night. Make sure all the storage sheds were locked. Check that the animals in the petting zoo had water. Easy stuff. For the first 4 nights, nothing happened. Sarah would listen to music on her phone, walk her routes, and count down the hours until morning. She even started bringing homework to do in the little security booth near the entrance. The job was boring, but the money was good, and she needed it for rent. But on the 5th night, October 15th, everything changed. It was colder than usual that night. Sarah remembers because she had to go back to her car to get an extra jacket. The weather app said it was 40 degrees, but it felt much colder. The kind of cold that goes right through your clothes and into your bones. There was fog, too. Thick fog that rolled across the pumpkin fields like a living thing. Sarah started her first patrol at 10:30 p.m. She walked past the closed food stands, their signs creaking in the wind. She checked the petting zoo, and the animals were all huddled together in the corner of their pen, which was weird. Usually they'd come up to the fence when they saw her, hoping for treats. But not tonight. Tonight they stayed far away, pressing against each other like they were scared. Then she headed to the corn maze. This was the part of the job she hated most. The corn maze at Harvest Moon wasn't small. It covered 5 acres and had over 3 miles of paths cut through corn that grew 8 feet tall. During the day, there were guides stationed throughout to help lost families. At night, it was just Sarah and her flashlight. The entrance to the maze had a big wooden sign that said, "Enter if you dare," with a picture of a smiling scarecrow. But the real scarecrow, the one everyone came to see, was in the center of the maze. They called him Jeremiah. Now let me tell you about Jeremiah. This wasn't some cheap Halloween decoration from a store. Jeremiah was special. He stood 7 feet tall on a thick wooden post. His body was made from real burlap sacks stuffed with straw, but stuffed so well that he looked almost human in shape. He wore actual clothes, old farmer's overalls that were ripped and stained, a red and black flannel shirt, and heavy work boots that someone had donated. His hands were made from leather gloves stuffed with straw, positioned to reach out toward visitors. But his face was what really got people. Instead of a painted sack or a plastic mask, Jeremiah's face was carved from wood. An artist in town had spent weeks on it, creating features that were almost human but not quite right. The eyes were too deep, the smile too wide. During the day, kids would dare each other to touch him. At night, he looked like something from a nightmare. Sarah entered the maze, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The corn was so tall and thick that the light only went a few feet before being swallowed by shadows. She knew the path to the center by heart now. Left, right, left, straight for 50 yards, then right again. It should have taken her 10 minutes. But when she reached the center, Jeremiah wasn't there. The wooden post he was supposed to be attached to was empty. The chains that held him in place were on the ground, not broken, but unlatched. like someone had carefully removed them. Sarah's first thought was that teenagers had stolen him as a prank. It wouldn't be the first time someone tried to steal decorations from the pumpkin patch. She grabbed her walkie-talkie to call Mr. Harrison, but all she got was static. She tried her phone, no signal. That was weird because she usually had at least 2 bars everywhere on the property. Then she heard it, a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled through the dirt. Sarah spun around, her flashlight beam dancing across the corn. About 20 feet away, just at the edge of where her light could reach, she saw him. Jeremiah, standing upright between the corn rows. Not hanging on a post, standing on his own 2 feet. "Very funny," Sarah called out, her voice shaking a bit. "I know someone's in there. Come out now and I won't call the cops." Jeremiah didn't move. He just stood there, that carved wooden face staring at her with those 2 deep eyes. Sarah took a step closer. "I'm serious. This isn't funny anymore." That's when Jeremiah tilted his head, a slow, deliberate movement that no scarecrow should be able to make. Sarah ran. She turned and ran faster than she'd ever run in her life. Behind her, she could hear that dragging sound again. But now it was faster, keeping pace with her. The corn maze that she knew so well suddenly became a trap. Every turn looked the same. Every path seemed to lead deeper into the maze instead of out. She could hear breathing behind her now. But it wasn't normal breathing. It was dry and raspy, like air being forced through straw, and it was getting closer. Sarah burst through a wall of corn, not caring about the path anymore. The stalks scratched her face and arms, but she kept going. She could see lights ahead, the exit. But when she looked back, Jeremiah was right there, maybe 10 feet behind her, his wooden face somehow expressing hunger. She exploded out of the corn maze and didn't stop running until she reached her car. Her hands were shaking so bad she dropped her keys twice before managing to unlock the door. As she started the engine, her headlights swept across the entrance to the maze. Jeremiah stood there, at the very edge of the corn, but now he wasn't alone. There were others with him, other scarecrows from around the property, all standing on their own, all watching her with faces that shouldn't be able to see. Sarah drove away and never came back. She didn't even go back for her last paycheck. She moved back in with her parents the next day and changed her major from agriculture to accounting. She wanted nothing to do with farms or corn or anything that reminded her of that night. But here's the thing that still scares Sarah the most. The next morning, Mr. Harrison called her, angry that she'd left her post. When she tried to tell him about Jeremiah, about the scarecrows moving, he laughed. He said Jeremiah had been in his proper place all night. He even sent her a photo from the security camera showing Jeremiah on his post at the center of the maze. The timestamp on the photo was 11:47 p.m. The exact time Sarah knew she was running for her life from that thing. Mr. Harrison fired her for abandoning her post and making up stories, but Sarah knows what she saw. She knows what chased her through that maze. And sometimes, on cold October nights, she still hears that dry, raspy breathing right behind her, even when she's alone in her apartment on the 10th floor of a building in the city, miles away from any cornfield. The Harvest Moon pumpkin patch closed 2 years later. Not because of Sarah's story, which most people didn't believe anyway. It closed because 3 more night security guards quit without explanation, and because families started reporting that in their photos with Jeremiah, he was in different positions in each picture, even ones taken seconds apart. The property is abandoned now. The corn maze has grown wild. The paths disappeared under weeds and wild corn. But people driving by at night sometimes report seeing figures standing in the overgrown fields. Tall figures that don't move like people. Figures that stand perfectly still until you look away. And then they're suddenly closer to the road. If you ever drive through rural Illinois and see an abandoned pumpkin patch, keep driving. Don't stop to explore. Don't take pictures. Because Jeremiah is still out there, and he's not alone anymore. Tree 2, the barn on Bitter Creek Road. Michael Torres had everything planned perfectly. He ran a YouTube channel about exploring abandoned places, and he'd spent 3 weeks researching the Hoffman farm. Every article, every news report, every local legend, he knew them all. The farm had been empty since November 2nd, 2005, when the entire Hoffman family just vanished. 5 people, parents Robert and Linda, and their 3 kids, ages 16, 12, and 8, gone without a trace. The police found no signs of violence. No notes. Their cars were still in the driveway. Breakfast was half eaten on the table, still warm when the police arrived after the oldest kid didn't show up for school. Their wallets, phones, everything was still in the house. They just disappeared, like they stepped out of existence between one breath and the next. Michael had explored dozens of abandoned places before. Old hospitals, closed schools, empty hotels. He knew how to be safe. He knew how to get good footage. He had 100,000 subscribers who loved his content. This video about the Hoffman farm was going to be special. He could feel it. He arrived at 7 p.m. on November 2nd, exactly 15 years after the family disappeared. The date was on purpose. Anniversaries always got more views. The farm was way out on Bitter Creek Road in Pennsylvania, miles from the nearest town. The main road turned to dirt, then to barely a path through the trees. If he hadn't had GPS coordinates, he never would have found it. The property was bigger than he expected. The main house was falling apart. The roof caved in from years of snow and rain. Not safe to explore, which was disappointing. But the barn was perfect. It stood tall and red against the gray November sky, somehow still solid after all these years. The paint was peeling and the wood was weathered, but it was intact. That's where he'd get his footage. Michael set up 3 cameras, one on a tripod facing the barn door, one he'd carry, and one backup. He did a sound check, made sure his flashlights had fresh batteries, and started recording his intro. What's up, explorers? Today is a special day. I'm standing at the infamous Hoffman farm, where 15 years ago, an entire family vanished without explanation. Behind me is the barn, where, according to local legend, strange lights were seen the night they disappeared. Let's see what secrets it holds. The barn doors were massive, probably 12 feet tall. They groaned like they were in pain when Michael pushed them open. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing exactly what he expected. Old farm equipment covered in rust and spider webs, hay bales that had turned black with mold, broken wooden stalls where animals once lived. It smelled like decay and old wood and something else, something sweet and wrong. But then his light hit something unexpected. In the middle of the barn floor, arranged in 5 perfect circles, were toys, hundreds of them. And they weren't old and dusty like everything else in the barn. They looked new, clean, like someone had just put them there. Michael's heart started racing, but not from fear. From excitement. This was content gold. He moved closer, camera rolling, narrating what he was seeing. Okay, this is weird, explorers. Someone's been here. These toys are arranged in a pattern, 5 circles. Look at this. The first circle has dolls, all facing outward. The second has toy cars, all pointing to the center. The third has stuffed animals. The fourth has action figures. And the fifth circle had school supplies. Backpacks, lunchboxes, notebooks. 3 sets. 3 children's worth. That's when Michael heard it. Singing. Children singing a nursery rhyme, their voices echoing from somewhere above him. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Michael pointed his camera up at the loft. The singing was definitely coming from up there. His hands were shaking a little, but he kept recording. This was why people watched his videos. For moments like this. You guys hearing this? He whispered to the camera. There's someone up there. I'm going to check it out. The ladder to the loft was old but solid. Each rung creaked under his weight. As he climbed higher, the singing got louder. Multiple voices, all children, all singing in perfect harmony. When his head cleared the loft floor, his flashlight revealed more toys, but these were different. Old toys from the 1950s covered in dust, and sitting in the middle of them, facing away from him, were 5 small figures. Michael climbed all the way up, his camera still rolling. The figures didn't move. They kept singing, their voices never stopping even to take a breath. He moved closer, his flashlight shaking slightly. Hello? He called out. Hey kids, you shouldn't be here. This place is dangerous. The singing stopped instantly. All 5 figures turned around at exactly the same time, like they were controlled by the same string. They weren't children. They looked like children, but everything was wrong. Their faces were blurry, like someone had taken a photo while moving the camera. Features that should be sharp were smudged. Eyes that were too big and didn't blink. Mouths that didn't quite close right. Skin that was the wrong color. Not any human color, but something between gray and green. "We've been waiting," they said together, their voices overlapping in a way that made Michael's teeth hurt. Waiting for someone new to play with. Michael stumbled backward, almost falling through the loft opening. The things that looked like children stood up. They moved wrong, like their bones were in the wrong places, like they were trying to remember how children were supposed to move but couldn't quite get it right. "Play with us," they said, stepping closer. "Play forever and ever and ever." Michael ran for the ladder, but one of them was already there, standing at the top. Up close, it was even worse. He could see through its skin in places, see something moving underneath. Something that wasn't bones or muscles, but something else. Something dark and writhing. "The Hoffman children want friends," it said, reaching for him with fingers that were too long. Too many joints. Michael did the only thing he could think of. He jumped. Not down the ladder, but off the side of the loft, falling 15 feet to the barn floor. Pain shot through his ankle when he landed, but adrenaline kept him moving. He grabbed his camera and ran for the door, but the door was closed. Not just closed, sealed, like it had never been opened, like it was part of the wall. Behind him, he could hear them coming down the ladder. Not climbing. It sounded like they were falling in slow motion, hitting each rung with a wet thud. Michael ran to the wall and started kicking at the old boards. They were rotten enough that they splintered under his boots. He made a hole just big enough to squeeze through, tearing his jacket, cutting his arms on the broken wood. As he pushed through, something grabbed his leg. The grip was cold and strong, stronger than any child should be. He looked back and saw one of those things, its face now completely smooth except for 2 holes where eyes should be. "Don't leave," it whispered. "We're so lonely. We've been lonely for so long." Michael kicked with his other foot, his boot connecting with its face. It didn't let go because it was hurt. It let go because it started laughing. All 5 of them were laughing now, a sound like glass breaking in reverse. Michael ran to his car, not caring about his twisted ankle, not caring about his expensive cameras left behind. He drove away so fast he almost went off the road twice. He didn't stop until he was 3 towns away. When he got home and checked his footage, most of it was corrupted. Static and strange colors and sounds that shouldn't exist. But one file survived. It showed the barn's loft, empty except for old toys. But in the corner, barely visible, were shadows on the wall. 5 child-sized shadows that didn't match anything in the room, and written in the dust, invisible when he was there but clear on camera, were words. "The Hoffman children are still here. They're still playing. Come back and play." Michael deleted his YouTube channel the next day. He moved across the country, got a normal job, tried to forget. But he did more research first. He found an article from 1955 about 5 children who died in a barn fire on that same property. The barn was rebuilt in the exact same spot. Then he found another article from 1978 about a family of 5 that disappeared from that farm. Then 2005, the Hoffmans every 27 years. 5 people. Always families. Michael thinks about it constantly. Those things in the barn. Are they the original 5 children who died in 1955? Are they something else that takes the shape of children? And what happens to the families they take? Do they become like them, stuck in that barn playing forever? He'll never know because he'll never go back. But sometimes, late at night, he hears children singing. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." And sometimes, in his dreams, he's back in that loft. But in the dreams, he doesn't escape. In the dreams, he stays and plays. And in the dreams, there are more than 5 children. There are dozens. All the families that have disappeared over the years, all still playing, all waiting for more friends to join their game. The barn still stands on Bitter Creek Road. The county has tried to demolish it 4 times. Each time, the workers report equipment failures, machines that won't start, tools that break, and always, the sound of children laughing from inside the barn, even though no one is there. Story 3. What Grew Beneath the Leaves. Emma Chen had saved for 5 years to buy her dream house. A beautiful old Victorian in Vermont, built in 1891, with 3 floors, 5 bedrooms, and a huge backyard, perfect for her 2 kids. Lucas was 8, smart and careful like his mom. Mia was 6, adventurous and fearless like her dad had been before the accident took him 2 years ago. This house was supposed to be their fresh start. The previous owners had left suddenly, selling the house for almost nothing. When Emma asked why, the real estate agent just said they had family emergencies and needed to leave Vermont immediately. Emma didn't question it too much. She was getting her dream house for half its value. Sometimes you don't question good luck. They moved in on October 1st. The trees in the backyard were just starting to turn, creating a canopy of gold and red above them. By late October, the yard was buried under a thick carpet of leaves. The kids loved it. They'd spend hours after school jumping in the piles Emma raked, throwing leaves at each other, building leaf forts. October 28th was a Tuesday. Emma remembers because she was working from home that day, sitting at her computer in the study that overlooked the backyard. She could see Lucas and Mia playing in the leaves through the window. Everything was perfect, normal, safe. Then Lucas came running inside, his face white with fear. Mom! Mia found something weird in the leaves." Emma followed him outside. Mia was standing by the biggest oak tree, pointing at something on the ground. As Emma got closer, she saw what had scared Lucas. Where Mia had been digging in the leaves, she'd uncovered a wooden door set into the ground. It was old, really old. The wood was dark, almost black with age, and around the edges were carvings. Symbols that looked like letters, but from no alphabet Emma recognized. "Can we open it?" Mia asked, excited like only a 6-year-old could be about finding a mysterious door. "No, sweetheart. We don't know what's down there. It might be dangerous." Emma's first thought was that it was an old root cellar. Vermont was full of them, places where people stored vegetables and preserves before refrigerators existed. But something about this door felt wrong. The wood should have rotted away after more than a century, but it looked almost new under the layer of dirt and leaves. She told the kids to go inside and wash up for dinner. Once they were gone, Emma knelt by the door. There was no lock, just an iron handle rusted with age. She shouldn't open it. She knew she shouldn't. But curiosity won. The door was heavier than it looked. It took all her strength to lift it. The hinges, which should have been rusted solid, moved smoothly, silently. Below was a ladder going down into darkness. The smell that came up was strange. Not the musty smell of an old cellar, but something organic and green, like a greenhouse but wrong somehow. Emma got a flashlight from the garage and shone it down. The space below was bigger than a root cellar should be. Much bigger. She could see stone walls extending beyond her flashlight's reach, and the floor seemed to be covered in leaves. Fresh leaves, which made no sense. She closed the door and covered it back up with leaves. She'd call someone tomorrow to check it out properly. Maybe the Historical Society would be interested. But that night, things started happening. Emma woke at midnight to the sound of leaves rustling inside her house. She sat up listening. The sound was coming from downstairs. She grabbed the baseball bat she kept by her bed and crept down the stairs. The living room was covered in leaves. Fresh, wet leaves that hadn't been there when she went to bed. They were arranged in a trail leading from the back door to the basement door. The back door was still locked, deadbolt in place. The windows were all closed and locked. There was no way leaves could have gotten in. "Mommy?" Emma jumped. Lucas was standing at the top of the stairs. "Go back to bed, honey." "I can't. Mia's not in her room." The words hit Emma like ice water. She ran upstairs to Mia's room. Empty. The window was open, curtains moving in the cold night wind. Emma looked out and saw small footprints in the frost on the roof, leading to the tree, down to the yard, straight to where that door was. She ran outside in her pajamas. Lucas right behind her, even though she told him to stay. The door was open. Not just open, thrown wide like something had burst out from below. "MIA," Emma screamed. A small voice answered from below. "Mommy, I'm scared. They told me to come down. They said they needed me." Without thinking, Emma climbed down the ladder. The space below was impossibly large, a circular stone chamber that couldn't fit under her yard. The walls were covered in those strange symbols, and they were glowing with a faint green light. The floor was covered in leaves, but these leaves were moving, rustling and shifting like something was underneath them. More passages led off from the main chamber. Emma's flashlight beam showed that they went on and on, a whole network of tunnels under her property. From one of them came Mia's voice again. "Mommy, hurry." They're getting angry. Emma followed the voice down a passage. The walls here were different. Instead of stone, they were made of roots, twisted and woven together like basketwork. And the roots were moving, pulsing like veins. The passage opened into another chamber, and Emma stopped in shock. The room was full of children, dozens of them standing perfectly still. They wore clothes from different time periods, some from the 1800s, some from the 1950s, some modern. Their skin had a greenish tint, and when Emma's flashlight hit their faces, she saw their eyes were the color of spring leaves. In the center of them was Mia. But something was wrong. Mia was standing too still, and there were roots, actual roots, growing up from the ground and wrapping around her legs, growing into her skin. "Let her go," Emma screamed, running toward her daughter. The other children all turned to look at her at once. When they spoke, it was in perfect unison, dozens of voices making one sound. She was chosen. The trees chose her. She will tend them as we tend them. She will feed them as we feed them. Emma grabbed Mia and started pulling her free from the roots. They resisted, clinging to her daughter's skin. Mia's eyes fluttered open. "Mommy? It hurts." The children moved closer, surrounding them. Up close, Emma could see that they weren't really children anymore. They were something else. Something the roots had changed. Roots grew through their skin in places, and their hair looked more like moss than hair. "You cannot take her," they said. "The trees are hungry. The trees have waited. Autumn is the feeding time. She's my daughter. We were all someone's children once. Now we are the trees' children. We keep them alive. They keep us alive. Forever and ever and ever." Emma pulled harder, and finally the roots snapped. Mia screamed, and greenish sap leaked from where the roots had been attached. Emma picked her up and ran, the changed children following but not quickly, like they couldn't move well away from the roots. But the tunnels were a maze. Every passage looked the same. Every turn led to another chamber full of roots and those horrible child things. Emma was lost, completely lost, and Mia was getting heavier in her arms. Then she heard Lucas's voice. "Mom, this way." Her 8-year-old son had followed them down. He stood at a passage entrance, holding something that glowed. It was a can of lighter fluid from the garage and a box of matches. "I thought we might need these," he said. "Too calm for a child in this nightmare." The root children recoiled from the flame when Lucas lit a match. They made a sound like wind through leaves, a long, mournful sigh. "Fire bad," they said. "Fire hurts the trees. Fire ends the forever." Emma didn't hesitate. She grabbed the lighter fluid and sprayed it on the roots around them. The roots writhed and pulled back, creating a path. She and Lucas ran, following the trail of retreating roots, until finally they saw the ladder. They climbed out into the cold night air. Emma slammed the door shut, and Lucas poured the rest of the lighter fluid on it. The wood caught fire instantly, burning with a green flame that was too bright to look at. From below came screaming. Not human screaming, but something worse. The sound of trees dying. The fire department arrived within minutes. A neighbor had seen the green light, but when they put out the fire, there was no door, no hole, just solid ground covered in normal, dead leaves. Emma took her children to a hotel that night. The next day, she went back to pack their things. In daylight, she could see that every tree in the backyard was dead. Every single one, like they'd been dead for years. The leaves that had been golden and red were now black and crumbling to dust. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what she found when she was bathing Mia that night. Where the roots had entered her skin, tiny green shoots were growing. Emma cut them off with scissors, and Mia didn't even flinch. She said she couldn't feel them. The shoots grew back within hours. Emma took Mia to doctor after doctor. None of them could explain it. The shoots weren't hurting Mia, but they couldn't be permanently removed. And sometimes, especially when autumn came around, Mia would stand at windows and stare at trees with an expression that wasn't quite her own. She'd whisper things like, "They're still hungry, and they're still waiting." The house in Vermont is still for sale. The price keeps dropping, but no one will buy it. Every autumn, the yard fills with leaves even though all the trees are dead. And sometimes, people driving by at night say they see children playing in the yard. Dozens of children, all with greenish skin, all tending to trees that aren't there anymore. Emma and her children live in Arizona now, as far from trees as they can get. But every fall when the leaves change elsewhere in the country, Mia gets restless. The green shoots grow faster, and sometimes, late at night, Emma finds her daughter standing at the window, whispering to something only she can see. "I'll come back," Mia whispers. "When I'm older, I'll come back." The trees are patient. The trees can wait. Emma doesn't sleep much anymore. She watches her daughter, and she plans. If the trees want Mia, they'll have to go through her first. And next time, she'll bring more than lighter fluid. Next time, she'll bring enough fire to burn every root, every tunnel, every connection those things have to her little girl. But deep down, she knows the truth. You can't burn away something that's already growing inside. You can only watch and wait and hope that when the time comes, love is stronger than whatever ancient hunger lives in those roots. Story 4. The Harvest of Souls. David Park was 17, a senior in high school, smart kid with good grades and a football scholarship lined up for college. On Halloween night 2018, he made the worst decision of his life. He and his girlfriend Ashley, along with their best friends Tom and Jessica, decided to check out a new haunted attraction they'd heard about online. The website was basic, just black background with red text. The Harvest of Souls, Ohio's most extreme haunted corn maze. Not for the weak. Must be 16 or older. Cash only. Midnight entries only. Do you dare? The reviews were insane. People saying it was too scary, that they'd had to leave halfway through. One person claimed they'd seen things that couldn't be special effects. Another said their friend had gone in and never come out, though everyone assumed that was just part of the marketing. David and his friends thought they could handle it. They were teenagers. They were invincible. They were idiots. The address led them an hour outside of Columbus, down increasingly empty roads, until they were on a dirt path with no streetlights, no houses, nothing but cornfields on either side. The only light came from their headlights and the full moon above. Finally, they found it. A hand-painted sign that said Harvest of Souls, with an arrow pointing down an even smaller dirt road. They followed it until they reached a clearing where about 10 other cars were parked. There was a small booth lit by oil lanterns, and beyond that, the entrance to the corn maze marked by burning torches. The man running the booth was tall, maybe 6'5", wearing dirty overalls and a flannel shirt. His face was weathered and creased, and he never smiled. "Not once. 4 of you?" he asked in a voice that sounded like gravel. "Yeah," David said, handing over the $100 cash for all 4 tickets. The man counted the money slowly, then looked at each of them in turn. His eyes lingered on Ashley, who was small, blonde, the kind of girl who looked younger than 17. "Rules," he said. "No phones, no flashlights, no leaving the path. Stay together if you can, but the maze will try to separate you. If you need to leave, yell Harvest, and someone will come get you. Understand?" They all nodded, excited and a little nervous. "One more thing," the man said as they started toward the entrance. "Don't trust anyone you meet in there. Not everyone in the maze works for us." Tom laughed. "What's that supposed to mean?" The man didn't answer. He just went back to his booth and sat down, not watching them anymore, like they'd already ceased to exist for him. The entrance to the maze was marked by 2 tall poles with torches on top. The corn was planted so thick you couldn't see between the stalks. The path was just wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side. As soon as they entered, the sounds from outside disappeared. No wind, no insects, nothing but their own footsteps and breathing. For the first few minutes, it was what they expected. Jump scares from people in masks, fake chainsaws revving in the distance, creepy music playing from hidden speakers. Ashley grabbed David's arm at every scare, and Jessica kept laughing nervously. Tom was trying to act tough, making jokes about the lame effects. But after about 15 minutes, David noticed something weird. They hadn't seen any other customers. A place like this on Halloween night should be packed, but they hadn't heard or seen anyone else since entering the maze. Then the path split. Not into 2 paths, but into 4. 4 identical openings in the corn, each leading in a different direction. "This is where we're supposed to split up," Tom said. "Classic haunted house trick." "The guy said to stay together," Ashley reminded him. "Come on, it's part of the show. We each take a path, get scared separately, then meet up at the end. It'll be fun." Before anyone could argue, Tom walked into one of the paths. Jessica, not wanting to look scared, took another. Ashley looked at David, squeezed his hand, then let go and entered the third path. David was alone. He could have followed one of them, but pride made him take the fourth path. He'd catch up with them in a few minutes. How big could this maze really be? Big. Really, really big. David walked for what felt like 20 minutes without seeing anyone or anything. No more jump scares, no more sound effects, just corn and darkness and the growing feeling that something was very wrong. Then he heard the chanting. It was coming from somewhere ahead of him. Multiple voices speaking words in a language he didn't recognize. It sounded old, older than Latin, older than anything that should be spoken in an Ohio cornfield. David almost turned back, but then he heard Ashley scream. Not a fun, scared scream, but a real terror scream. He ran toward the sound. The path opened into a clearing that shouldn't exist. The corn maze couldn't be this big, but there it was. A circular area maybe 50 feet across with a massive bonfire in the center. Around the fire stood figures in brown robes, at least 15 of them, all chanting in that ancient language. And hanging above the fire, suspended from wooden frames, were 4 scarecrow-like figures. But David could see they were breathing. They were people dressed up like scarecrows, hung up like decorations. One of them was wearing Ashley's pink jacket. David's mind tried to make sense of it. This had to be part of the show, an extreme haunted house thing. But then one of the robed figures pulled out a knife, not a prop knife. David could see the firelight reflecting off the sharp metal edge. The chanting got louder. The figure with the knife walked toward Ashley's suspended form. She was struggling against the ropes, trying to scream through the gag in her mouth. David didn't think. He just acted. He burst from the corn, yelling like a madman. He tackled the figure with the knife, sending them both rolling across the ground. The knife flew from the figure's hand, landing near the fire. The chanting stopped. All the robed figures turned toward him. Under their hoods, he couldn't see faces, just darkness. David scrambled for the knife, grabbed it, and started cutting Ashley down. She fell into his arms, sobbing and shaking. He cut the gag from her mouth. "They're going to kill us," she gasped. "They're going to burn us. It's real, David. It's all real." David looked at the other suspended figures. Tom, Jessica, and 2 people he didn't recognize. All alive, all terrified. He started cutting them down too, working as fast as he could while the robed figures just stood there, watching. "Why aren't they stopping us?" Tom asked once his gag was out. That's when they heard it. More chanting, but from outside the clearing, from all around them. David looked at the corn and saw lights approaching through the stalks. Torches. Dozens of them. "Run!" David yelled. They ran, all 6 of them, crashing through the corn in whatever direction seemed away from the lights. The stalks cut their faces and arms, but they didn't stop. Behind them, the chanting grew louder, angrier. And now there were other sounds, feet running through the corn, getting closer. Jessica tripped and fell. When Tom helped her up, one of the robed figures was right there. It grabbed Jessica's arm with a grip like iron. Tom punched it in the face, and the hood fell back, revealing something that used to be human, but wasn't anymore. The face was stretched, pulled tight over a skull that was the wrong shape. The eyes were all black, no whites at all, and when it opened its mouth to scream, David saw rows of teeth like broken glass. Tom hit it again with a rock he'd grabbed, and it let go. They kept running, but now the things were everywhere, coming through the corn from all directions, their torches creating a net of light that was closing in. Then David saw it, a break in the corn, and beyond it, the parking lot. Their cars were right there, maybe 50 yards away. "There," he yelled, pointing. They burst from the corn maze as a group. David's car was closest. He fumbled for his keys, dropped them, picked them up. The others piled in, Ashley in front, the other 4 cramming into the back. The engine started on the 3rd try. In the rearview mirror, David saw them. At least 30 robed figures standing at the edge of the corn, watching. Just watching, not chasing anymore. David floored it, sending gravel flying. They didn't stop until they reached a gas station 20 miles away. Under the bright fluorescent lights, they could see each other clearly for the first time. They were all covered in cuts and bruises. Their clothes were torn. And on each of their foreheads, drawn in what looked like ash, was the same symbol. A circle with lines through it that hurt to look at. They called the police, of course. Told them everything. The cops went to investigate, following David's directions, but there was no corn maze. No booth, no parking lot, just an empty field that hadn't been planted in years. The farmer who owned it had been in the hospital for 3 weeks. The police thought it was drugs. Mass hallucination. But drug tests came back clean. The cuts and bruises were real. The symbol on their foreheads wouldn't wash off for days. And the 2 strangers they'd rescued? They had no memory of how they'd gotten there. The last thing they remembered was entering a corn maze in Indiana 2 weeks earlier. David and his friends never talked about it much after that. They all went to different colleges, lost touch. But every Halloween, David has the same dream. He's back in the corn maze, but this time he's wearing the brown robe. He's the one holding the knife, and hanging over the fire is someone new. Someone who just wanted a fun scare on Halloween night. He wakes up from these dreams with that symbol burning on his forehead, like it's trying to come back. And sometimes when he's driving at night and passes a cornfield, he sees lights moving through the stalks. Torches carried by things that aren't quite human anymore, still searching for sacrifices, still performing their ritual. The website for the Harvest of Souls is still online. It updates every year with a new location. David has tried to get it taken down, but it always comes back. He's thought about going to the new locations to warn people, but he's too afraid. Afraid that if he gets too close, the symbol will take over. Afraid that he'll become one of them. So he does nothing. And every Halloween, more teenagers disappear into corn mazes that don't officially exist. Most come back with stories of the best scare of their lives. But some don't come back at all. And some come back changed, with symbols on their skin and darkness in their eyes, ready to help with next year's harvest. Story 5. The 13th Guest. Rachel Coleman had been planning this Thanksgiving for 6 months. It was going to be perfect. Her first time hosting the entire family in the farmhouse she and her husband Mark had bought in rural Maine. The house was built in 1820, full of history and character. 3 stories, 6 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, and a dining room that could easily seat 20 people. She'd invited everyone. Her parents were driving up from Boston. Her brother James was bringing his wife and 2 kids. Mark's sister Sarah was coming with her new boyfriend. And of course, Grandma Agnes, 93 years old but still sharp as a knife. 12 people total. The perfect number for the antique dining table that came with the house. November 24th, 2022. Thanksgiving Day. Rachel had been cooking since 5 a.m. The turkey was a 25-pounder, golden brown and perfect. She'd made all the sides from scratch. Mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, stuffing, sweet potato pie. The house smelled amazing. Everyone arrived by 2 p.m. The kids, Emma age 6 and Josh age 9, immediately ran off to explore the huge house. The adults gathered in the living room, catching up, drinking wine, laughing at old stories. Outside, snow began to fall, light at first, then heavier. It was like a movie, Rachel thought. The perfect Thanksgiving dinner was served at exactly 4 p.m. Rachel had used her grandmother's china, the good silver, cloth napkins. The dining room looked beautiful with candles and autumn decorations. Everyone took their seats, Mark said grace, and they began to eat. They were halfway through the meal when they heard it. 3 knocks on the front door. Slow, deliberate. So loud they echoed through the house. Mark stood up, napkin still in hand. Must be someone with car trouble. The snow's really coming down now. He walked to the front door, everyone listening from the dining room. They heard the door open, heard Mark say, "Hello?" Then silence. Then the door closing. Mark came back looking confused. Nobody there. Must have been kids playing pranks. But Grandma Agnes had gone completely white. Her hand shook as she set down her fork. "What time is it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Rachel checked her phone. 4:33. Agnes closed her eyes. No, not again. Not after all these years. "Mom, what's wrong?" Rachel's mother asked, concerned. Agnes looked around the table, counting. 12. There are 12 of us. On Thanksgiving. In this house. She grabbed Rachel's arm. "You have to leave. All of you. Right now." "Grandma, you're scaring the kids," James said. But Agnes wasn't listening. She was staring at the front door. "I know this house. The Brennan house. I was here in 1942. I was 13 years old. My family was visiting the Brennans for Thanksgiving. There were 12 of us at dinner. 3 more knocks came from the door, louder this time. The pictures on the walls rattled. "Don't answer it," Agnes said. "Whatever you do, don't answer it." But 6-year-old Emma had already run to the door. "I'll get it," she called out cheerfully. "No!" Agnes screamed, but it was too late. Emma opened the door. The lights went out. Not just the lights. Everything electric died at once. The room was lit only by the candles on the table, throwing dancing shadows on the walls. In the doorway stood a figure. It wore a black suit that looked like it was from the 1800s. The fabric was old and moldy, covered in grave dirt. Snow swirled around it, but the snow was wrong. It fell upward around the figure, defying gravity. But its face, where its face should be, was just smooth, pale skin. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a blank canvas of flesh that somehow still seemed to be looking at them. Emma stood frozen in front of it. The thing reached down with one long-fingered hand and patted her head. When it touched her, frost spread across her hair. "The 13th guest has arrived," Agnes said, her voice steady now, resigned. "It comes every 40 years to houses that host 12 for Thanksgiving. In 1942, it took my cousin Timothy. He was 6 years old, same as Emma." The faceless thing walked into the house. Each step left frost on the floor. It moved toward the dining room, its head turning to survey each person despite having no eyes. The temperature dropped so fast that everyone's breath became visible. It stopped at the head of the table. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere, like wind through a graveyard. 12 at the table. "The feast is set. One must come with me, the youngest or the oldest. Choose." "Take me," Rachel said immediately, moving in front of Emma. "I'm the hostess." "Take me," the thing tilted its head. "You are not the youngest. You are not the oldest. The rules are clear." Agnes stood up, using her cane for support. "I know you. You took Timothy. I've spent 40 years learning about you. You're not the only one who knows the old rules." The faceless thing turned toward her. "The eldest, then? You will come." "No," Agnes said. "There's another way. I found it in a book, a very old book. The feast can be broken. The gathering can be dissolved. If the table itself is destroyed, if the 12 become scattered, you have no power here. The feast has begun. The 12 are counted." Agnes smiled, a fierce expression. "Count again after this." She raised her cane and brought it down on the dining table with surprising force. The old wood cracked. "I break this gathering," she shouted. "I scatter this feast." Everyone understood at once. Mark grabbed his side of the table and flipped it, sending food and dishes crashing to the floor. James kicked over chairs. The kids, not really understanding but following the adults, threw their plates against the walls. In seconds, the perfect Thanksgiving dinner became chaos. The faceless thing writhed, its form flickering. "You cannot. The rules are ancient. So am I," Agnes yelled back. "And I reject your rules. This is not a feast anymore. This is not 12 gathered. This is chaos. This is nothing." The thing's voice became a howl of rage that shattered the windows. Snow and wind rushed in. The candles went out, plunging them into darkness. In that darkness, Rachel felt something cold brush past her, reaching for Emma. She grabbed her daughter and held tight. Then suddenly, the lights came back on. The windows were whole. The faceless thing was gone. But the dining room was still destroyed. Food everywhere. Table cracked down the middle, chairs overturned. And burned into the wooden floor where the thing had stood was a message. 40 years hence. "Pack everything," Agnes commanded, her burst of strength fading. "Leave tonight. Never come back. And never ever have 12 people at Thanksgiving dinner again." They left within an hour, not even cleaning up. Rachel sold the house the next month to buyers from California, who thought they were getting a great deal on a historic property. But Rachel did research after that night. She found the records Agnes had mentioned. The Brennan family, 1942, 12 at dinner, 6-year-old Timothy found dead the next morning, his face completely smooth, features erased. She found more. 1902, the Carlson family. 1862, the Mitchells, always 40 years apart. Always 12 at dinner, always one taken, and she found something else. Something that made her call the California family who'd bought her house. They didn't believe her, of course. thought she was trying to scare them into selling back. They're planning their first Thanksgiving there this year. They've invited family from all over, exactly 12 people. Rachel has tried everything, called the police, the local news, even tried to get the house condemned. Nothing works. Nobody believes her. Agnes is 94 now, too frail to travel, but she keeps track. She knows what's coming, because here's what Rachel found in her research. The thing doesn't always wait 40 years. Sometimes, if a feast is broken, if it's denied its tribute, it gets hungry. It comes back sooner, and it doesn't just take one. The last time a gathering was broken in 1822, the thing came back the very next year, and it took everyone, all 12, the entire Ashford family, found the next morning sitting at their Thanksgiving table, perfectly preserved but dead. Their faces all smooth, all blank, like dolls. So if you're planning Thanksgiving dinner, count your guests. Count them carefully. 11 is safe. 13 is safe. But 12? 12 is a number that draws attention. 12 is a feast that calls to something old and hungry. And if you hear 3 knocks at your door after sunset on Thanksgiving, don't answer. Let them knock. Let them wait. Because some guests once invited in never really leave. They just wait, patient and hungry, for the next feast to begin. These stories I've shared with you tonight are all true. Every detail, every impossible moment, every nightmare that shouldn't exist but does. The people who lived through these experiences want you to know what's out there. They want you to be careful. Fall is ending soon. Winter will cover the world in snow and ice, hiding the secrets that autumn reveals. But next year, when the leaves start to change, when the nights grow long, when the harvest season returns, remember these stories. Remember Sarah and the scarecrow that wouldn't stay still. Remember Michael and those things that wanted to play forever. Remember Emma and what grew beneath the leaves. Remember David and the corn maze that shouldn't exist. Remember Rachel and the guests that nobody invited. And remember this: every single person in these stories thought they were safe. They thought they were just having normal autumn experiences. They were wrong. The next time you see a scarecrow in a field, watch it carefully. When you pass an abandoned barn, keep driving. When your kids play in leaf piles, check what's underneath first. Stay away from corn mazes that only open at night, and always count your dinner guests. Because autumn is the season when things that sleep the rest of the year wake up hungry. And sometimes, just sometimes, they're hungry for more than pumpkins and fallen leaves. Sweet dreams. If you can manage them after tonight,